In the quiet suburban town of Willow Creek, the air hung heavy with silence on a night that would never be forgotten. The perfect family, or so it seemed, was shattered by a crime so shocking it left the entire community reeling. A mother, brutally murdered, a stepfather, nearly killed. And at the center of it all, a 14-year-old girl who had spiraled so deeply into obsession and manipulation that she believed the only way to make her twisted fantasy come true was to kill her mother. This is the disturbing story of Amanda Michaels, the 14-year-old who murdered her mother to be with her stepfather. A story of a fractured mind, manipulation, and betrayal that shocked even seasoned investigators. What drove a young girl to commit such an unspeakable act? To understand Amanda's journey into darkness, we must start at the beginning. To the outside world, the Michaels family was the picture of suburban perfection. Julie Michaels, a high-powered attorney with a pristine reputation, had built a comfortable life for herself and her daughter, Amanda, after the sudden death of Amanda's biological father when she was only 8 years old. For 6 years, it had just been Julie and Amanda, but everything changed when Eric Michaels came into their lives. Eric Michaels was a successful architect, known for his charisma and good looks. He swept Julie off her feet, and it wasn't long before the two married, blending their lives together. Amanda, only 8 at the time, quickly grew close to her new stepfather. To everyone around them, it seemed like the perfect modern family, but as we all know, appearances can be deceiving. While Julie was content with their life, the bond forming between Amanda and Eric was stronger than anyone anticipated. At first, it seemed like the typical stepfather-stepdaughter relationship. Eric was attentive and nurturing, stepping into the role of father figure easily. Amanda adored him, but this adoration quickly grew into something more, a deep, unhealthy fixation. Eric understands me like no one else. Mom doesn't get us. She's always in the way. Sometimes I wish it could just be the two of us. What no one knew, at least not yet, was that Amanda's admiration for Eric was far from innocent. In her mind, she saw him not just as a father figure, but as something more, a partner, a confidant, and ultimately, someone she believed she was destined to be with. As Amanda entered her teenage years, her behavior began to change. Once a bubbly, outgoing child, she grew more withdrawn and secretive. She spent hours locked away in her room, her phone becoming her closest companion. Julie noticed the changes, but chalked it up to typical teenage angst. She didn't realize that Amanda's obsession with Eric was growing deeper by the day. Amanda, I hate her. She's always in the way. It's like she doesn't even care about us. Eric, I know, but she's your mom. We have to be careful. Amanda, but we'd be so much happier without her. Don't you ever think about that? Eric, maybe, but we can't just do anything crazy. Eric, for his part, did nothing to stop the growing fixation Amanda had on him. In fact, he encouraged it. Through a series of increasingly inappropriate text messages, Eric manipulated Amanda, making her believe that they shared a special bond, one that Julie, her mother, could never understand. Julie had no idea that the two people she trusted the most were exchanging these secret messages. As Amanda's obsession grew, so did her resentment towards her mother. Julie, who had once been her protector, was now seen as an obstacle to the twisted fantasy Amanda had built in her mind. Sometimes I dream that it's just me and Eric, just the two of us. I think he feels the same. If only she were gone, I could make him happy. The writings in Amanda's diary took a darker turn. In the pages, Amanda detailed her fantasies of being with Eric, and her hatred for her mother grew stronger with every entry. It wasn't just jealousy, it was a cold, calculated desire to eliminate the one person standing in her way. By this time, Amanda was not the only one harboring dark thoughts. Eric, who had spent years manipulating his stepdaughter, began to see an opportunity in Amanda's growing resentment towards Julie. He was a master manipulator, carefully feeding Amanda's obsession with subtle hints and promises of a future together. Eric, you know I care about you, Amanda, more than you think, but we can't do anything as long as your mom is around. It's complicated. Amanda, then let's get rid of her. Eric, let's not talk about that. It's not that simple. We have to be smart. Eric played a dangerous game, planting the seeds of violence in Amanda's mind without directly telling her to act. He knew she would eventually take matters into her own hands. He just had to wait. Amanda, I want to do it. I'll make it quick. She'll never see it coming. Eric, you're not serious, are you? It's not that easy. Amanda, I've thought it through. I know how to do it. Eric, just be careful. Don't do anything stupid. Eric's messages were vague enough to avoid direct guilt, but clear enough to continue fueling Amanda's belief that killing her mother was the only way to make their twisted relationship a reality. By the summer of Amanda's 14th year, her fixation had reached its peak. She had made up her mind. Julie had to die. After months of emotional manipulation and growing resentment, Amanda finally reached the breaking point. She found Eric's handgun hidden in his office and knew exactly what she had to do. Amanda, it's time. I'm going to do it tonight. Eric, don't be stupid, Amanda. Just wait. Amanda, no more waiting. She's gone tonight. Amanda's decision was final. That night, as Julie lay asleep in her bed, Amanda crept into the room, the cold steel of the gun shaking slightly in her hands. But her resolve was unshaken. She had rehearsed this moment in her head so many times. With one cold, calculated movement, Amanda fired the first shot. Julie woke up in shock, confusion in her eyes as blood gushed from her wound. But Amanda wasn't done. She fired again, and again. The sound of fire echoed through the house. In just a few seconds, Amanda's world had changed forever. Her mother, the woman who had raised her, was dead. But Amanda wasn't finished. She used Julie's phone to text Eric, luring him back home with a message that would seal her fate. Amanda, from Julie's phone, "Come home, honey. I need you." Eric, who had been expecting this message, returned home just as Amanda had planned. But as he stepped through the door, Amanda was waiting with the gun in hand. She fired once more, grazing Eric's shoulder. When the police arrived at the Michaels' residence, they were met with a scene of unimaginable horror. Julie lay dead in her bed, her body riddled with gunshot wounds. Amanda sat at the kitchen table, calm, her hands still stained with her mother's blood. There was no panic, no remorse, just cold detachment. Amanda was arrested on the spot, and within hours, the story had spread across the town of Willow Creek. The community was in shock. How could a 14-year-old girl, a child, commit such a brutal crime? And what role did Eric play in this horrific event? The trial of Amanda Michaels quickly became a media spectacle. Prosecutors painted Amanda as a cold-blooded killer, driven by jealousy and obsession. But her defense team argued that she was a victim, manipulated by her stepfather into believing that murder was the only way to secure their twisted future together. Prosecutor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what we have here is not just a case of teenage rebellion gone wrong. Amanda Michaels planned this murder. She executed it with precision and calculation, but she didn't act alone. Behind her was Eric Michaels, the man who had manipulated her for years, pushing her toward this unthinkable crime. Eric, in his testimony, denied any involvement in the crime. He claimed that Amanda had acted on her own, that he had no idea what she was planning, but the text messages told a different story. Eric, don't do anything rash. We'll figure this out together. Just be careful. The jury saw right through Eric's lies. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, text messages, diary entries, and testimony from Amanda herself that painted Eric as the mastermind behind the murder. Amanda, they argued, was a vulnerable, impressionable girl who had been emotionally manipulated by a man she trusted. The trial of Amanda Michaels became one of the most talked about cases in recent years. The media branded her the evil 14-year-old, a title that sent shivers down the spine of anyone following the story. But behind the sensational headlines, the trial was far more complex than just a teenage girl gone wrong. It was about manipulation, obsession, and ultimately, the exploitation of a vulnerable mind by a man she trusted more than anyone, her stepfather, Eric Michaels. After months of testimony, including chilling evidence of Amanda's text messages, diary entries, and the gruesome details of Julie's murder, the prosecution painted a clear picture of premeditated murder. But Amanda's defense team argued that she was not the mastermind behind the killing. She was merely a puppet in a much larger scheme orchestrated by her stepfather. Amanda's defense centered on the psychological manipulation she had suffered at the hands of Eric. The defense attorney, a seasoned professional, made an emotional appeal to the jury, painting Amanda as a victim, a young girl who had been groomed and brainwashed by a man who should have protected her. Defense attorney, Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Amanda Michaels was just 14 years old when her mind was poisoned by the very man she trusted, her stepfather, Eric Michaels. He manipulated her, exploited her emotions, and convinced her that the only way to earn his love was to eliminate her mother. She is not the monster the prosecution claims she is. She is a victim. But the prosecution had a different story. They argued that, while Amanda may have been influenced by Eric, she knew exactly what she was doing. Her actions, stalking her mother in the dead of night, firing 3 cold-blooded shots, and luring Eric into an ambush, were not the impulsive actions of a manipulated child. They were the deliberate choices of a girl consumed by obsession and hatred. Prosecutor: Amanda Michaels pulled the trigger. She planned this murder, and she carried it out with precision. The text messages, the diary entries, and the brutal way she executed her mother all point to one undeniable fact. This was premeditated murder. She is not a victim of Eric's manipulation. She is the mastermind behind this horrific crime. After only 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. The courtroom fell silent as the jury foreman stood, holding the fate of Amanda Michaels in his hands. Jury foreman: we, the jury, find the defendant, Amanda Michaels, guilty of first-degree murder. The verdict sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Julie's family members wept quietly, while Amanda's defense team sat in stunned silence. Amanda herself remained emotionless, as if she had already accepted her fate long before the words were spoken. News anchor: Amanda Michaels has been found guilty of first-degree murder, and the sentencing phase will begin shortly. The young girl, who became infamous as the evil 14-year-old, now faces life in prison for the brutal killing of her mother, Julie Michaels. But the story doesn't end here. The trial of Eric Michaels, the man accused of manipulating Amanda into committing this crime, is set to begin in just a few weeks. While Amanda's trial had gripped the nation, it was the trial of Eric Michaels that truly revealed the depths of manipulation and deceit that had plagued the Michaels household. Eric, once seen as the charming, successful architect and loving stepfather, was now on trial for conspiracy to commit murder. The prosecution's case was clear. Eric had groomed Amanda, manipulated her emotionally, and ultimately convinced her that the only way they could be together was to kill Julie. Eric's trial was a spectacle. The prosecution presented hundreds of text messages between Eric and Amanda, painting a chilling picture of emotional grooming. These were not the conversations of a concerned father and daughter. They were the conversations of a predator and his victim. Amanda: I hate her. I want her gone. It's the only way we can be together. Eric: you know what you have to do. Just don't get caught. It'll all be worth it when it's just us. You're the only one who understands me, Amanda. These messages, along with Amanda's diary entries, painted a picture of Eric as a calculating manipulator. He had spent years grooming Amanda, playing on her insecurities and her desire for love and approval. He convinced her that the only way to achieve happiness was to eliminate Julie. Prosecutor: ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what you will hear in this courtroom is not just a story of a young girl driven to madness by her obsession. You will hear how Eric Michaels, a grown man, preyed on the emotional vulnerabilities of a teenage girl and turned her into a weapon. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he must be held accountable for the death of Julie Michaels. Defense attorney: Eric Michaels is not a monster. He never asked Amanda to kill Julie. Yes, their relationship was inappropriate, but it was Amanda's own twisted mind that led to this tragic outcome. Eric is guilty of poor judgment, but he did not conspire to commit murder. The defense's argument hinged on the idea that Amanda acted alone, that Eric was merely a passive participant in the unfolding tragedy, but the evidence presented by the prosecution was overwhelming. The text messages, the diary entries, and even Amanda's own testimony painted a clear picture. Eric had orchestrated the entire plot. Amanda: he told me we would be together. He said that if my mom was gone, everything would be better. I thought I was doing it for him. I didn't know what else to do. Amanda's testimony was the final nail in the coffin for Eric Michaels. As she recounted the months of manipulation and emotional abuse, the jury watched in stunned silence. It became clear that while Amanda had pulled the trigger, it was Eric who had put the gun in her hand. Jury foreman: we, the jury, find the defendant, Eric Michaels, guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and child endangerment. Eric was convicted on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His calm, stoic demeanor throughout the trial shattered as the reality of his sentence set in. The man who had once controlled every aspect of Amanda's life was now facing the consequences of his actions. Eric's conviction brought a sense of justice to Julie's family, but for Amanda, the damage had already been done. The young girl who had been manipulated into committing the unthinkable was now serving her own life sentence, but her story would continue to haunt the nation. 4 years have passed since Amanda was convicted of her mother's murder. She is now 18, but the weight of her actions will follow her for the rest of her life. Amanda's case has sparked national debate about the role of manipulation, mental health, and juvenile justice. Was she a cold-blooded killer, or was she a vulnerable child who fell prey to a predator? Criminal psychologist. Amanda's case is unique in that it forces us to confront the fine line between victim and perpetrator. She was clearly manipulated by Eric, but at the same time, she made a choice to commit murder. It's difficult to say where the line is drawn in terms of accountability. Legal expert. While Amanda was ultimately convicted of first-degree murder, her age and the psychological manipulation she endured have led many to question whether she should have been tried as an adult. There is no easy answer in cases like these. Amanda's story has left an indelible mark on the legal system. Her case prompted discussions about the treatment of juvenile offenders, especially those who are manipulated by adults into committing violent crimes. As Amanda serves out her sentence, she is eligible for parole in 30 years, though her fate remains uncertain. For now, Amanda Michaels remains behind bars, reflecting on the choices that led her down such a dark path. She is no longer the 14-year-old girl who believed that killing her mother would bring her happiness, but the consequences of her actions will stay with her forever. The case of Amanda Michaels and Eric Michaels is a tragic reminder of the power of manipulation, the vulnerability of young minds, and the devastating consequences of obsession. While Amanda's story may have ended in a prison cell, the questions it raises about justice, accountability, and the darker side of human nature continue to linger. In the end, no one walked away unscathed. Julie Michaels lost her life, Amanda lost her freedom, and Eric Michaels, the man who pulled the strings from the shadows, lost everything. A family destroyed by lies, manipulation, and murder, leaving behind a legacy of darkness that will never be forgotten. Thank you for watching. The story of Amanda Michaels is a chilling reminder that even the closest of bonds can be twisted into something dangerous. If you found this video insightful, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think? Was Amanda Michaels a victim or a villain? We'd love to hear from you.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
I just killed my mom.